Alright, Gobfin, the strongest pal in Palworld. And this is not a joke, it is the strongest pal, because its partner skill gives you, when max condensed, 20% damage increase, or 20% attack power to the player. And this also stacks, and it stacks with Vanguard, which means that you can have 4 Gobfins, and then an element swap pal, something that gives you super effective damage against whatever you're fighting. And that's the general most powerful build in Palworld. So just to show these scaling numbers, we got a couple of shots with assault rifle. Those are headshots. Let's do that again with just basic damage. So we got around 1100-ish here with no buffs with the assault rifle, legendary assault rifle. And then we can add a Gobfin to that. So here we have one Gobfin. We add that from 1100 to around 1450. Because each one of these Gobfins has Vanguard as well, so each one will add 30% to the player attack. You'll see PAL skill effect, 30%. Then we add 3 more Gobfins. We now have 120% bonus attack, so we should be shooting for around 2400. And then when you do damage as well, everything has like a plus minus 10% randomized factor, but you average out around 2460. Then on top of that, we can add a saddle pal. So we'll add Ragnarok. I'll put a little chart here in the video with each of these element swap pals. So how these work is that they give you a attack bonus for some of them. Most of them give 20%. There's Frostallions with 40%. And I think there's also Verdash with 0 because it gives move speed instead. And it also swaps your element. So if this was a grass or ice dummy, you would do super effective damage with it, but just a 20% increase plus Vanguard on this pal as well, you end up doing around 2800 damage per shot. Then you add the accessories on top of that. So you add these attack pendants. You can only have 1 of each kind, but you can wear 3. So in total, they add 30% attack as well. Pal equipment effect, 30%. You could just go for the good one, or that one is a bit minor, but it still adds up. So we'll use the saddle as well on top of the accessories. We have 3100-ish damage. And all of these add up together. So you take your base 200 attack with the max stat, and then you take that times this effect together. So these add together, you get 180%. Then you take food times that, so the food is multiplicative. You take the food bonus, you give that to yourself. Then you have almost 700 attack, because the food then multiplies on top of the other stuff. I'll put the formula here somewhere to make it easier to see. So with food on top of that, you get around 3920. And that's with the Ragnarok one. So if you switch to, where do we have them? Frostallion and Frostallion Noct, they give 40% instead. They're just overall the strongest pal for this, if you have that effect. So when you're fighting Xenoloord or Axel, you get a lot more bonus damage. They deal a lot more with their 40% bonus. So that's why you want that on them as well. And then I can show also the build on these Gobfins. You'll see it's Vanguard for the 10% attack. Then you add Stronghold Strategist as well for 10% in player defense. So we also have plus 40% defense bonus. So if we just show, right now we're 1832. We remove these Gobfins. 1300. So it's quite a lot of defense that you're losing out on. If you compare it to Hexalite upgrades like Legendary versus Common, you can see Legendary here 750 and 455. So not only are you boosting your attack, you're also boosting your survivability with those pals. And then some for the other boosters, I'll show it real quick. I add Motivational Leader, and then this one is just whatever. I usually go something like Swift or Legend for the Gobfins, just so they can put out fires in the base a little bit faster, run and repair. But it's not a big deal what the third one is. If you're not doing Noble, find first. A lot of people go with that, but I prefer just Motivational Leader and then a random one for the 25% in player work speed. So this is mostly for when I'm raiding and doing some other stuff. When you build the altar, this is with no Gobfins. See, it takes a little bit, I think it's around 5 seconds. Pretty minor thing, but just makes rebuilding stuff a lot faster for the player. But it's a lot faster. Pal skill effect 100%. That means double, right? So something like just a chest. If you just, oh, I need a quick chest, it's almost instant. Anyway, so I'm going to be jumping into those tower bosses now. These knockdoms ended up here. They're not supposed to be there. So these are just some of the common element swap pals that you will be using with the Frostallion, with the Gobfins. So jumping into some tower bosses now. Alright, so this is pre-recorded stuff, doing a voiceover here now. I'm using 8 multi-guided missile launchers and a full combat build Anubis. This Anubis is built for attack with Serenity, Demon God, all the good stuff. You can see that the boss dies quite quickly, at least with that first volley of multi-guided. You could have brought 8 multi-guided, I guess, and just swapped weapon instead of reloading to kill it even faster. But I felt like this was fast enough. What was it, 25 seconds? Should be good. That is like the potential of this maxed out build against Lily and Lyleen. She has some water attacks. Most of these towers have their counter skill. They have like more attacks of their counter than they do of their main element. So Lily will use a lot of water skills, Marcus a lot of electric skills, Victor and Saya use a lot of ice skills to counter dragon. So more often than not you want to bring their own element against them, but not this time because we're changing our pal to fire type. Then I threw a seed mine there, but I don't think that works against grass, so that's probably a bad call. I'll get more into that later, why I did seed mine there, but it didn't work against grass. So then we have Frostallion, the 40% bonus. So here, something I've been considering rebreeding. So all these mounts that I'm using are Vanguard, Legend, Swift, and Runner, just to run really quickly around the room and dodge skills while shooting. But with how tanky pals are now, with souls and level 60 and everything, you could probably, like this Frostallion doesn't even have 3 attacks, you could probably build more of an attack oriented Frostallion with like max damage and then spam the skills while reloading and shooting. And since you're using double sets of skills while mounted and unmounted, you could probably skip Serenity. So something like Legend, Demon God, Vanguard, and something else. Here I switch one multi-guided for a rocket launcher, just to clear those NPCs really quickly. Marcus and Faleris are also very weak to splash damage, or I mean area of effect damage, so like Holy Burst, Curtain Splash, all of them deal a lot of damage. This is my old Asher main, or Asher robe I mean. I'm gonna keep making that mistake. So if this has no attack passives, it doesn't even have attack souls, it's not max level. That's just testing the skills there a little bit. I don't think they added so much damage to the fight. But imagine if this Asher robe had attack stats and used those skills. You could probably kill that boss a lot faster. And that was quite fast in itself. For Victor and Shadowbeak, I don't think I would rebreed Chillet to have attack passives. First off, it just has terrible attack. It could potentially do a lot with like Beam Slicer, Blast Cannon, and Holy Burst against Victor, because he's a big boy. But you generally don't want to stop an attack against Victor. You want to dodge his skills. They do quite a lot of damage, most of them at least. I mean, Chillet does have part ice, so it does resist the ice skills. It doesn't die to the, since it's also dragon, but it is pretty weak. I'm not even sure I've buffed this Chillet. I don't think so. I think it still has only the plus 20 souls. It just has attack and defense. It's not full on IVs, so it is quite squishy. You could probably make your Chillet quite a bit tankier than mine is. And then it's probably worth giving it some attack passives. But overall with the Gobfin build, that's just adding a little bit of damage. It's probably not a major amount of damage compared to the damage you're putting out with your weapons and just the element swap itself. But there is a skill ceiling there. You have a lot of potential damage. But hard mode Victor in about a minute, not too shabby. The build is showing its strength. Same thing here again, I switch one multi-guided for a rocket launcher. With some of these hard mode bosses I feel it's worth pairing that rocket launcher. And here I mess up, you should be going counterclockwise. I wasn't really thinking, I just want to do damage. For some reason, that starlight beam seems to miss when you're going counterclockwise and hit when you're going clockwise. Then you have the burn effect from it, does quite a lot of damage as well. Just quite a bad start. You generally don't want to eat a full starlight beam in the first 20 seconds of a fight in hard mode. Something to keep notice of here is the color of the numbers. So send something super effective damage, the numbers should be orange. If you hit a headshot with super effective, it's red. But if you hit her weak spot, it's gray, which, since it's super effective, turns to white. So a lot of these rockets, first off, I miss a lot of them. Just trying to hit her weak spots. I'm trying to bend the rockets to different spots to see if I can get the red numbers, which is the super effective numbers. But what ends up happening is you get a lot of the white numbers as well, which are just regular damage. So just against Saya, I feel like this is the only tower boss this really happens with. You might be better off using the plasma cannon or something, and just making sure you hit the headshots instead, so there's a lot of potential there. You can see what I'm trying to do is see different angles of bending the missiles. You see shooting straight at her seem to do like the weak damage, which is white. Bending it to the left, I felt like bending it upwards to the left seemed to get some headshots, but at the same time some of the missiles also missed. So generally that's more a Saya and Selyne thing, something with their hitbox. So you can see counterclockwise the beam just misses compared to running clockwise. And then with the Gobfin build, a huge benefit is that those adds that she summons, they just die. They die to 1 or 2 attacks from your missile or rocket launcher, whatever you use. It's quite nice to have the rocket launcher reloaded for when they spawn, and then just shoot that as well for the big splash effect if they spread out a little bit. But it's also a reason to nuke them quickly. When they spawn, they're clumped, then they move around, they jump backwards to attack. That's Science Selyne, a bit of a trickier fight due to these homing missiles. Good example there, they have trouble finding it. Yeah, good example, they have trouble finding the boss. Then we have hard mode Bjorn. It's the same thing with the rocket launcher. I think you can hit all 3 if you shoot in the middle, but then they bounce away and you kind of lose the ability to hit the splash. I usually try to hit the ones on the left so they bounce towards the boss, but it doesn't always work. So Bjorn, it doesn't seem like he has that same issue with the weak spot and strong spot, or whatever you want to call it, with headshots. You will hit these red numbers just by aiming, like you could aim backwards. They will hit the boss for the red numbers. But Bjorn, for me, watch out. When the ground starts to shake, run. That is pretty much a one-shot skill. So he has a few of these sort of one-shot skills. It's that one, it's called Stone Beat. It's a new ground attack. You can get it from Necromus and breed it. But then after that, it's mostly Glacial Impact, which I don't remember him using at all this fight for some reason. Sometimes he really likes using it. But Wall Splash is very dangerous against most pals, if they're big, especially fire pals. Like it's a one-shot against especially like Faleris. It's Wall Splash, it's Glacial Impact, which has a big wind-up. And then you have that Stone Beat. But except for that, I don't really feel like it's a super dangerous boss. It feels more like a DPS check. It's a pretty boring fight. I was considering not putting this in there, but it is the current hardest power boss. But I preferred Science Selyne as more like glass cannons. The fights were a little bit quicker. If I'm going to include a Bjorn and Bastigor fight in all my like PAL showcase videos and stuff, they're gonna become very long. Ground shaking, move away. But like each of these fights, like this is with the highest damage build in the game. Some of the builds I've tried against him, the fights are usually like 8 minutes long. So they're kind of a slog, probably not the most entertaining fight. I'm not sure if I've done it yet in this fight. I did it against Marcus and Faleris, and what I'm talking about now is using the aggregates, like Ivy Cling, which is the root effect. You have the stun from electric attacks, the Electrify effect, and then you have Soaked from water. You'll often notice when you climb out of the ocean, or a river or whatever, that there's like a dripping effect on you, and you're a bit slower, that lasts for 10 seconds. So you see I throw out Seed Mine, he walks into a seed, and he gets rooted, hopefully. So each time it happens at a lower chance, what do you say? There's diminishing returns on it. Each time you manage to hit one of these aggregate effects, the chance of it happening again lowers. But why you do want to hit it with those 3, Electrify, Soaked, and Root, is that they double the damage of the element that is super effective against them. So if you hit a Root effect on Bjorn, you will deal double damage with fire. So you can notice some of these numbers. Maybe if you go back a little bit and check in the beginning when I used Seed Mine. You deal double damage during those 10 seconds when he is rooted with fire. If you land soaked with a water attack, you do double damage with electric. This is an example of that. Just lightning streak. He's electric, and then you shoot 2 rockets for double damage. So that's how you reach those numbers. It lasts for 10 seconds. You have a 10-second window to just shoot your 8 quad launchers. Or 4, or whatever, how many you're bringing. This build was used to solo Bellanor Libero Ultra. I've used it to solo Rio Ultra, and I've used it to solo the regular Xenolord. I'm not going to put those in this video though, because the fights are like 10 minutes, so I would add 30 minutes to the video. You can just search for them if you want to, like Zero Base Pal, Ultra Raid Boss or something. They should come up. But it's a very powerful build for this. So even when my Anubis died, I think it's like ground smashed into a beam slicer or something. The build is still very strong, even without the super effective damage. And here's the Xenolord one, using Frostallion. Nice when you get to use Frostallion, you get to see the full potential of the build for the 40% bonus. And I think the intro of the video had me one-shot or 4-shotting a Frostallion Legend with the build as well, using that rooted effect. So for now, thanks for watching.